Shane, tell us briefly, what is zero trust architecture?
Yeah, so a zero trust architecture is a modern approach to security. It gets away from the traditional castle and moat domain model, and it moves us towards modern security, which is designed for hybrid work and BYO devices and all the ways that people work now.
Okay, so what does zero trust give us in this modern work environment?
Yeah, so it in a non-technical sense, it moves us beyond VPNs and passwords. And in a more technical sense, it uses explicit verification to limit the exposure of a breach and to help prevent breaches entirely.
Okay. So what exactly is the problem that we're trying to solve with zero trust?
Yeah, so look, when passwords were invented in 1961, they were a great invention. Yeah. But now it's 2021 and they're killing us, right? Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. Similarly, VPNs, which were prominence in the 90s, they worked great then, but they don't now. So zero trust addresses the fact that employees work outside of your building now. Yep. That kind of castle and moat doesn't work, right? Yeah. So you need security that will work outside of the bounds of your building, and that's what zero trust is all about.
And why is it so critical that we're addressing it now? Why is it such a hot topic right now?
Yeah, sure. So in a word, COVID, right? Everyone works outside of the building now, or at least a lot of white collar workers. Yeah. So zero trust will assume breach. So it assumes that your network is compromised. And then you explicitly verify every single time an access request is made. And that really works much, much better than the old way.
What's the process to get zero trust working in an organization? It sounds like a big change. How do you go about it?
Yeah, it is. And so there's multiple vendors that you can get zero trust for. Obviously, we work with Microsoft Technologies, and we believe that's the best stack. So the technology is already there, and most people have already paid for it through their licensing. But you do have to implement it, and there is a cost to that, and you usually will need outside expertise for it.
Okay. And so what are the major components? What are the building blocks to building a zero trust or implementing a zero trust architecture?
Yeah, so at the base level, where you used to have a firewall and a DMZ, and you try to keep everything in and out, that's your perimeter on a traditional network. The new perimeter is your endpoints and your identity. And there are technologies like Azure AD and Intune to help you with that. There's also technologies for data, which is important. There's technology for apps, which is important. And for more legacy companies that do have an on-premise footprint and can't get rid of it, there are technologies for your network to help you as well.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, with zero trust, we're pulling in a whole bunch of signals from our devices and our user's identity, and then we're putting those through some kind of a policy engine to make a decision around allowing you as an individual to come through and access a file or a record, or allowing somebody to log in. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair simplification?
Yes, that's correct. So you would use what's called dynamic policy to check the risk level of an access request. So you would check the device, you check the user, you check what app is coming through, you check where they are, you can check what type of network they're on, all kinds of fun things. And depending on the risk level, you may ask for second factor authentication, right? Yeah. So, hey, please get on your phone and verify it's you. Or you may outright block the request, like, hey, you're in Russia, no thanks.
Yeah, right. What are the immediate benefits of zero trust to companies, enterprises, government departments?
Sure. So the most immediate benefit is that you are going to reduce the risk of a breach greatly. And even if you do get breached, the ability for hackers to move laterally within your network will be greatly diminished. It's also more cost effective once you get it operationalized. A lot of the new technologies like Intune, for example, have a lot of benefits to the amount of time it takes you to run your day-to-day IT operations.
Okay. Can you give us any examples of organizations who have already implemented zero trust?
Sure, yep. So we do it just as an example, and there are plenty of others. But we have Intune running our devices. We use Azure AD. Our data is in OneDrive, which is all hooked into the Microsoft stack. And we have application checks and balances. And then we also run Defender and other AI-based and logic-based investigation tools that monitor our network regularly.
And I guess we're using conditional access policies.
We sure are, yeah. That's how you get that dynamic policy. So that all fits within Azure. And we use them to, every time someone tries to get to any file or any data that we have, all that's being checked. Now it's invisible to the user. Yep. They don't see it, but it happens.
So we're trying to make this a really smooth and seamless experience for the user, for a legitimate user, but maximize the friction and the barriers for someone who's not a legitimate user.
That's correct. Yep.
That's great. Why doesn't everyone do this?
Yeah, good question, right? They should. But in a lot of organizations, there's a lack of knowledge of the new way of doing things, right? So, just Intune is an example. Large enterprises have been using SCCM or configuration manager for 30 years. It's hard to make the swap.
So there's some organizational inertia because the tools that are already in place, the sunk investment, takes time to change.
That's right. And most of the time, they're actually paying for the license already because it's part of the Microsoft suite. So they're paying for it. They're just not
that was going to be my
using
next question is, well, what's the cost to implement Zero Trust? Like if you have Microsoft 365, do you need to buy anything additional?
No, you don't. That's the best part, right? Like you probably have shelfware that already covers this.
You've got it.
What you need is someone to help you get that inertia going, right? So usually an outside partner can really get the ball moving for you. There's obviously change management and other things like that need to be, taken care of and accounted for.
So would you say that Zero Trust is a must-have or a nice-to-have?
Oh, it's a must-have. Yeah, it's a must-have for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that in the past year, breaches have gone up 500% through COVID, right? Because employees are remote, right? And the average cost in the United States of a breach is $8.64 million. That number is not going down. The number of hacks isn't going down, and the legacy companies that stay on a legacy network model are the ones that are going to suffer.
Where does Zero Trust fit into the whole modern endpoint management framework?
So it's a core component and one of the pillars of the modern management framework, right?
The 6 pillars.
That's right. Yeah. So it's part of becoming a modern cloud-first organization, and without it, you will always be at risk of excessive risk of breach.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah.
Now, one of the primary reasons we're talking about Zero Trust is because we can no longer trust our passwords. So that's a beautiful segue into the next topic, which is all about going passwordless.